So, as we sit here, being 18 days away from the start of the 2021 NFL Draft, we got to be aware that once draft night starts, there's going to be some curveballs that happen that we weren't expecting at all. For many Cowboys fans, this happened last year when the Dallas Cowboys got a chance to take CeeDee Lamb at pick 17. And we got to realize that the Cowboys have a ton of options at 10 once they get their opportunity to select a prospect. In this video, I wanted to do a mock draft in which how I feel certain teams should go along with what I think is actually going to happen on draft night. So, with that being said, you can call this my official mock draft as we're less than 3 weeks out of the 2021 NFL draft, and it's crazy that we're getting closer and closer and closer to finally seeing what's going to happen. Before we begin, if you guys could, first off, start off by hitting the like button down below. Doesn't take too long to do, helps the channel out a lot. Also, make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already so you don't miss out on new content. And more importantly, make sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss out when that content first drops. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with this mock draft. So we're going to go ahead and transition into more of a podcast type of style where in just one take I'll discuss these 10 picks and really get a feel for what I think these teams should do and rather what I think they'll do on draft night. So to start things off, I think the most obvious selection is going to be Trevor Lawrence to the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's just when you look at this whole situation, this was probably the competition of who could suck the most in 2020, and it was between them and the Jets. Obviously, they were able to win the sweepstakes there. They get their guy. He isn't going to be a massive difference maker, to be completely honest with you. I think they need a lot more help. And sure, you get the quarterback, and ultimately we'll see if he pans out. But if I'm Jacksonville, you need to make sure you continue to put talent around him. If not, then you're going to ruin another quarterback prospect. So, with that being said, moving on to number 2. With the trading of Sam Darnold, it's for certain that the Jets are going to take Zach Wilson at pick number 2. I personally like Zach Wilson as my quarterback 1 in this draft class, mainly due to the intangibles he possesses. And, it's very close between him and Trevor Lawrence, but it's just, you look at what the Jets have, and again, they're in the same position as the Jacksonville Jaguars. They really need to infuse a bunch of talent into these franchises because they are starting from scratch more or less. You need to figure out who's going to be the franchise guy and you need to build around that. So with that being said, I do think that the Jets make the right decision and take Zach Wilson here at 2. Moving on to San Francisco, they traded up with Miami, and this has to be for a quarterback. There has been discussion onto what quarterback will go here. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, and if I'm the 49ers, I'm looking at getting Justin Fields here because of the fit with Kyle Shanahan. And to be completely honest with you, he is my quarterback 3. But that doesn't mean that Justin Fields is super bad. I kind of had to reevaluate him because, I'm not a big fan of Ohio State quarterbacks. But I will say this. Justin Fields is a much better fit for San Francisco than Mac Jones would be. Justin Fields has that mobility factor along with, you look at Kyle Shanahan's type of offense. He's a guy that would be a perfect fit. And on top of that, Justin Fields has that potential too, as do the, similar to that of the guys in front of him in this mock draft. I understand that Ohio State quarterbacks tend to suck, but he's a better prospect than Dwayne Haskins was. And I sort of liked what Dwayne Haskins had. I just think he needed more time to develop. And with Justin, I think that he's a little bit more ready than Haskins was. But another thing that I like with this fit is that Justin's going to a team that already has a decent amount of talent on it. He's got a nice security blanket in George Kittle. He's got some receiving options he can work with, and he's in a style of offense which caters to a run game. And I would assume they're going to make more of this read option type of stuff with Justin as well. The defense, as long as they're fully healthy, they're a solid group too. So I can definitely see San Francisco being the best, more so Justin starting off quickly, in terms of being the more successful out of the other two because of the situation he's in. So I think this is a win-win. Now, we get to pick 4, and this is where the actual draft starts. And while Atlanta can maybe go quarterback here and get the heir apparent to Matt Ryan, I don't believe Atlanta is going to do that. I think, honestly, Atlanta is most likely going to try and put as much as they can on that offensive side of the ball to make sure that Matt Ryan can do his thing. I don't believe they'll go with a tackle. I'm not really feeling that. I honestly believe that Kyle Pitts is going to go to the Atlanta Falcons. Kyle Pitts, in my honest opinion, is the best prospect outside of a quarterback. He's the best non-QB prospect coming out of this draft. He has the ability to really be a massive threat on offense. And sure, while Matt Ryan doesn't have a whole lot of time left, whoever's going to be the next guy in Atlanta is going to have one hell of a weapon to go with. And if you are the Falcons as well, you kind of look at this and you got Calvin Ridley, who's going to be your star wide receiver for many years. Julio Jones getting up there. He's still got something left in the tank, but you have a successor to Julio Jones, and I think that Kyle Pitts, this is a guy that is a very versatile weapon. You can't go wrong with taking a guy like him, especially if you already have a loaded offensive core. And so when I look at Dallas, and if Dallas has the opportunity to get this guy, you can't pass up on a talent like that. You're doing yourself a disservice, and with your division rivals right behind you, if they take him, then I think I'm not as afraid because their quarterbacks are now fully settled, but we'll see. I think this would be a right call for Atlanta, and I wouldn't be shocked if they do this. They're not going to go quarterback. They won't go offensive lineman because they invested a decent amount to that offensive line. But yeah, that's where they're at right now. Now we get to pick 5, and I think this can be the pick where things can go a bit awkward. Before, it was kind of a certainty that Penei Sewell would go to, the Bengals at 5. I'm not so sure of that at this point. I do believe that with the departure of A.J. Green, I honestly think that the Bengals roll with Jamar Chase here. And they get Joe Burrow's old buddy down in LSU. And they just roll with that. I think the best decision would be you go get an offensive lineman to protect your quarterback. I would probably go with Penei Sewell here. If they're not super sure if Penei will, we don't know about the measurables. You got Rashawn Slater as well, but I do think that Jamar Chase is going to go to the Bengals. I wouldn't, again, I would rather go with the offensive lineman here, but knowing Cincinnati and knowing the fact that they lost a target for Joe Burrow, you have the opportunity to get him another weapon, but you're still going to have to figure out a way to fix up this offensive line. Now we get to pick 6, and if Jamar Chase was still on the board, he definitely would have gone here. But I look at it here, and I think that with the season Devontae Smith had, I think that puts him in a much better position than Jalen Waddle, even though I believe Jalen Waddle is the better player, or rather better prospect in this case. And similar to that of the situation with Cincinnati, I do believe that they go Devontae Smith here. Would I do that? Yeah, you need to give your offense more of a kick to it. And honestly, if Kyle Pitts doesn't go at 4, he's definitely going to go at 6. Tua needs a bit more weaponry to work with. I think that, sure, you can definitely go with an offensive lineman, but I don't feel that the Dolphins are going to go that way, And I think they're more concerned about getting an offensive weapon for their young quarterback so that they can see if they got something in them. And so we move on to pick 7, and here we are with Detroit. And with Detroit, they already took a corner very early. They took Jeff Okudah with the 3rd pick, if I recall. And I don't see them going with another corner. Sure, they could use another one, but I doubt that. I think that we're gonna probably see another wide receiver come off the board, or we see one of the first offensive linemen come off the board. You look at the Lions. They lost Kenny Golladay to the Giants. They got Jared Goff at quarterback. The way I look at it is that you can't go wrong with getting an offensive lineman. But I do think that the Lions go with a receiver here in Jalen Waddle. Before the start of the draft, I was, or rather before we got into April, I was more feeling that they'll go quarterback. But for some reason, I just don't think that Detroit would do that. I think Detroit would rather get an offensive weapon. And, it's a tough toss-up between an offensive tackle or one of the defensive players. And so with that being said, you move over to Carolina. Now, this is where an offensive lineman's going to go. And, it's a tough call because, honestly, the Panthers can go either way with, these players. And if I'm looking at it, I think Rashawn Slater is actually going to be the first guy off the board. And so with that, I think that the Panthers will go with Rashawn Slater, the tackle out of Northwestern. He is not that far off from Penei Sewell as being the top offensive lineman prospect in this draft. And if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, you're damn well excited because now you have either Penei Sewell, Patrick Surtain II, or J.C. Horn right there for the taking. Now, we get to the Broncos, and I do believe they will take the first. If Patrick Surtain doesn't go earlier, which if he's going to go earlier, maybe Atlanta decides to go with, another corner to pair with A.J. Terrell. Another young cornerback, I should say. I think that they're still going to roll with Drew Lock. I know that there was the situation in which they wanted to get Carson Wentz and they would send Drew Lock off, so I don't know. They could go Mac Jones here, but I don't think they would do that, mainly because they need either a linebacker or a cornerback. And so I look at what the Broncos can do, and I think they're going to go with Patrick Surtain II out of Alabama. I've talked about Pat Surtain before, and I think that he's up there with J.C. Horn as the number one guy, and you can't really go wrong. I think that J.C. Horn right now is my cornerback 1. And that's mainly due to the fact that he has a lot more upside and he's not afraid to be physical. And you need that type of mentality in a corner, and I like that. Patrick Surtain's more of a cross between Chidobe Awuzie and Byron Jones, and that's not... You can't go wrong there either, too. You're getting a cerebral player that can really, bring that type of mentality of like, hey, this is, a smart guy. But if I'm Dallas and Patrick Surtain goes, now you're looking at, do we go with an interior offensive lineman and we plug up that guy, at left guard? You take Penei Sewell and put him at left guard. I mean, that's what I would do, because, he's a guy right there that, hey, you can really fix up your offensive line there. And I really think that Dallas is going to follow their board here. If they have Penei Sewell high, they most likely will take him. And I've also said that it's going to be between a couple prospects. It's between the 2 offensive tackles, J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain II, and Kyle Pitts. So Kyle Pitts, he's off the board. Rashawn Slater and Pat Surtain are off the board. I honestly do believe that the Cowboys will probably... It's hard for me because half of me wants to be like, they'll just go corner for the sake of corner, but if... The way I look at it, I honestly... If Dallas does what they did last year, which we're going to go ahead and do this, Penei Sewell is going to be your left guard of the future. Young guy. I loved the guy before we got into this draft talk type of stuff. And even when the Cowboys were losing a ton of games, I really wanted the Cowboys to draft this guy. He is one of those prospects that you can plug and play, and he's going to be a 10-year player so long as health is A-okay. And you can plug him at left guard for now, and if Lyell's having issues, you can move him over to right tackle, and if Tyron's having issues, you can, or rather he retires, you can move him out to left tackle. Like, you have so much more flexibility with Penei Sewell as one of your guys that you don't even have to worry about the offensive line other than who's playing where. Because you still got another year after this with Connor McGovern. Sure, Connor Williams is going to be on the way out, but he doesn't prevent you from taking a guy like him or Rashawn Slater. And I think we, as Cowboys fans, should be satisfied. I understand that you can take a cornerback here, but, you paid Dak Prescott $40 million, and you saw what helped you out in 2016 and 2018, and it was a really good offensive line. I understand 2016 was on a whole nother level, but you have a really good offensive line that can help you in the run game, can help protect the quarterback, and you get back to that. And it's a boring pick, sure, but it's a really good value pick. You're getting a guy that was probably, in my honest opinion, right after Kyle Pitts, he's the number 2 overall prospect when it comes to guys outside of quarterbacks. And that's something that I wouldn't be upset with the Cowboys taking. Sure, they can get defense later, but... And I'm not trying to dismiss the issues there, because if they... even if Penei Sewell was on the board and they went with J.C. Horn, I would not be upset with that either. This is a win-win situation. You just got to decide what you value more, and if you follow your board, you're taking Penei Sewell. If you decide, you know what, J.C. Horn is right behind him, or maybe we value him a little bit higher, and we're following our board, he's one of our better defensive prospects, let's go take him. So that's where I stand right here. And, for the sake of where we stand here, I'm going to stop. Because when you look at what the Giants and Eagles have to play with, you know, they kind of have to decide what they want to go from here. There really isn't a prospect that screams out to me that I would be worried about. You have all the main offensive weapons go in that first period of time. And if they're looking corner, sure, but, you know, I would be satisfied because my rivals aren't getting a massive piece to plug in and really be a detriment to the Cowboys. So, with that being said, this is my mock draft on the first 10 picks. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like as well as subscribe if you haven't done so already, and hit the notification bell. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Alright guys, have a good one. Bye-bye.